again, I like how you're talking about staying positive and not saying we're really concerned about the dangers, but to say there's concerns, or I don't know. I'm just wondering how to phrase it, how the initial approach should be going forward when I am reaching out.
Okay, well, like I said, watch the video that we did with Chandler. That'll give you an
Okay.
idea of what the tone is.
Okay.
I do want to let everybody know that there is unfortunately some terms that you want to master and then not keep saying. And these are, it's odd because you sit there and go, oh, wait a minute, that's polite terms. I should use terms like that, okay? But strategically, this is just a big old chess game that the wires industry has been playing for 2 decades or more, and you're newbies, okay? And so you don't know all the stuff, all the tricks. And so at the end of the day, what we're trying to do, here's a bad word. You want to replace this word, concern, okay? Doesn't sound like a bad word, but it's used against you all the time, okay? And I can show you exactly where it comes from. It comes from a lawsuit that the wires industry won back in 1999. But because of this, they use it all the time to wrap up everything you've said as a concern. Now, what does a concern mean to an elected representative? It means, I don't have to do shit for you. I just labeled your stuff as a concern, and therefore it's not real. And now I have no liability or responsibility. I just wrapped it all up and labeled it as a concern and went out the door. Ha ha ha. So you're going to get some letter back from somebody that says, thank you for sharing your concerns about blah, 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 blah. You're going to write right back. I didn't share any concerns at all, sir. No, I shared total fact, substance, and law. And I'm telling you specifically, these are real problems. Okay. So that you have, then this is the whole point about layering in the public record. Okay. You can turn your communications into evidence in the public record, because they have to look at the public record to make their decisions. If you got it all stacked with real evidence, not just worries and concerns, well, now you're getting leverage over them. Now they understand if they go to court, they're going to lose because the record's really not in their favor. Okay, so you don't do it with a thought of, oh, well, I'm putting this in the record because we're going to sue you. You just keep building the record, and they kind of go, they're starting to do it. They understand the game now. Uh-oh, we got to look at these people differently. Okay. Yeah. So that's kind of one of the things. Let me just quickly show you what it looks like, because it's so simple. Now we have a terrible cell tower in my town, Petaluma, California, and we're trying to fight it here. This is it. We have an industrial building that they're going to put, count them, 16 antennas on the top, 4 here, 4 here, 4 here, and 4 in the other corner. Really terrible. This is right in the middle of a residential zone. Just a list of the communications that I've given to them over time. And I follow a little format. I'm going to jump to it and then highlight it. So here's a big old letter I wrote on November 6th. Okay. And I put at the front of this email that goes to the whole world. This is generally a good idea. You send it to everybody. Send it to my mayor, all the council members, all the planning commissioners, anybody involved. Okay. And I say right up front, hey, city clerk, will you please add this email to the record for this particular project that has this all kinds of problems? Will you please ensure that it gets printed in the paper file? We're requesting this, all this happens so that we can have it given to the right people. Thank you for doing so. So this tells everybody who's about to read the letter, you're for real. You know what you're doing. Okay. And it's just a regular email, but if you don't ask them to put it in the record, it's their choice of whether they do or they don't. If it's controversial, they probably don't. If you put this paragraph in, then you get to follow up. Hi, I'm here to do an immediate inspection of records. I'd like to know exactly what's in the paper file. Let me see it. Now you're making your city clerk accountable for keeping the record up to date. And this now gets back to the city attorney. And now they get an understanding that you know the game. All right. This is how you start getting leverage over them. Okay. And you don't wait. It's not all about complaining. It's all about things that are very specific to what you're learning. And anything like your records requests and all the stuff, and whether you're getting good service or not good service, and whether they're delaying you, all that goes in the record, all the bad behavior. Yes, we contacted these people 14 times in the last 3 weeks, and we only got 1 return phone call. I'm going to put that in the record. So it's like their report card. That's the point. And then they eventually figure out they got to give you better service. And if anybody wants to, they can copy and paste an example here and use it for their letter. But if you make this all happen on one web page, well, then everybody, it's easy to see. But it's our town, our choice. But the key one is in solutions. And you see these three things called Ordinance M, which is the moratorium, We Want It, which is the other ordinance worth passing, and vertical horizontal power. So if you just go to these three and just scrape the page, copy paste it, put it in an email, send it out, do whatever. These are things that you can be pitching right away. Ordinance M is pretty simple. It basically just says that Donald Trump said that we had a national emergency on March 1st. So as him doing that, then they pass it off to your governor, who had some kind of order, who passed it off to the county health official, who had some other kind of order. And what did they eventually do? They eventually defined what were essential activities and businesses. It was about the operations and maintenance of infrastructure. Well, that's good. Is the building of new infrastructure on the list? It's not. All right. Why don't you just go ahead and put a moratorium out and stop the building of new infrastructure right now? You can do it. It's allowed by the FCC order. You got a COVID-19 emergency already established by your government ahead of you, higher than you. So that's one thing you can ask for right away. And that's what, write to your mayor and to your city council members and say, hey, look, we're getting overrun here and we're not getting much service. Things aren't really wide open here. And look, here's the bottom line. Your staff doesn't have enough time to do everything properly, and they're getting run around by the wireless industry unnecessarily. Give yourself some time. Let's pass this ordinance that will just put them on the back burner until COVID-19 is over. All right. And this will give your city now the time to make the other adjustments they need during this national emergency. Look, you can debate with me and everybody else whether it's a real pandemic or not, but that's not the issue. The issue is that the government has considered it a national emergency. So take advantage of that. That's the one good thing about this that you can do. You can stop the building of cell towers, but you got to go and do your own research. You got to go look at your own health orders to see what it says. Maybe stupidly in Arizona, they said the building of cell towers is an essential activity. I hope not. Too much of this is, oh, I heard this from somebody and we're just going to run with it. Don't do that. Do your own research and figure out what's right, and then go forward that way. Because, there's no point in passing hearsay around that they're only going to make two statements and prove you wrong. Then your credibility is shot, and you're wasting everybody's time. That's the strategy of everything. Read every law that you can and figure out where the wiggle room is. The low-hanging fruit obviously are moratorium and the We Want It committee. Okay, so let's go to We Want It next. That's another easy solution. We just do a test every 6 months. What do? We get an independent RF engineer who's going to drive around the city, and he's going to look at the signal strength of every channel in your city by any provider. And we make a big old database of it, and we stick it in the public record so anybody can look at it. Okay. Why do you do this? Well, so now we can decide whether there's a need for any of this. And if there is a need, then we can decide exactly where we want it. And who pays for it? Well, the wireless industry does. Why? Well, they're currently operating in your city. They are currently a business polluting your city. So we're going to take an inventory of all the antennas that are operating today. We're going to figure out what the specs are on these antennas. And we're going to figure out what the capability of these antennas are. And we'll do a market share analysis. Hey, Verizon, you're polluting our town with 64% of all the microwave radiation. You're going to pay 64% of the bill. We did all this information to be fair, but really you're doing it to laser focus your people on the fact that there's 8.7 million effective radiated power of pollution in your town. And that's just ungodly too high. And so that's the whole point. You start painting them with pollution paint, because they got too many antennas. And when you inventory all the antennas and you do all the specs and you put it right there on the record, nobody can walk away from that. They got to deal with that. Now they come in with a new antenna. Geez, we already have 8.7 million watts. Do we need any more? It kind of changes the mindset is what we're trying to do, right? So that's the point of this one. This one is easy. And this one is just get you good data for, and it costs the wireless industry. It's chump change for the wireless industry, folks. It's like $20,000, $30,000 a pop. It's nothing. And when you split it among T-Mobile and Verizon, they sneeze, $1,000 bills. So the harder one to sell, but it's really true, is the VHP. And this just the bottom line is that you take a look at for anything that you want to install in the public rights of way or attached to a building or anything that's lower than 100 feet off the ground, well, now we have to reduce the size and you have to then kind of talk them through what this is all about. This is a longer, harder sell. So this is to ask for later. Okay, after you get we want it, after you get a moratorium, then you start walking them down this path. Look, the wires industry is going to fight this one tooth and nail, but you can do it. You can talk them into it. And here's the main reason why. This is it. 47 U.S. Code 324. This is part of the 1996 Act right here. This was highlighted by the attorneys that are suing the FCC, and they're going to argue this case in January. And it's a great thing. In all circumstances, all radio shall use the minimum amount of power necessary to carry out the communication desired. We asked the FCC on October 19th, does this apply to cell towers? The answer was yes. And it's because it's a radio station. It gets a license from the FCC. Every single cell tower is a small radio station. And how much power should they use? The minimum. Is it optional? No, that's a shall. That's one of those must words.
Question, Paul.
Yeah.
Which group of lawyers are facing the FCC in January? Is that the regulators?
Nope. That's Environmental Health Trust and Children's Health Defense.
Oh,
That's Edward B. Myers and Scott McCullough. Where did it come from? The top telecom attorneys in the United States. Didn't come out of my butt. So don't listen to me. Listen to these good attorneys.
And are they claiming minimum power is 5 bars on a cell phone?
They don't say that in their case. I say it all the time, mostly because here's your biggest problem in this big struggle, okay? Anyone who's been in business, anyone who understands anything about sales, okay? You take over sales territory and you're going to be either blessed with the beauty of a low base, meaning you can easily exceed that, or cursed with the sin of having a high base, which is going to make it really, really hard to match that, okay? Well, here's what the wireless industry did. You know, before they started the whole thing, they put 10 million at the top. That's the curse of the highest base you can imagine, okay? So then they go in and they can make every comparison they want to 10 million microwatts per square meter, and everything sounds low. I mean, they're going to sit down and say, oh, we're just 1% of the guideline, so we're perfectly fine. I'm here to tell you that if you're at 1% of the guideline, you are getting totally screwed. But nobody has the perception that you're getting screwed. So when you go back to 5 bars on a cell phone, well, that's 0.002 instead of 10 million. Ah, well, that's the number we want to compare ourselves to, because everything else sounds big compared to that. And everybody understands 5 bars on a cell phone. That's the point. So now that's your new metric. Yeah, don't worry. We're going to be compliant with the guideline. We don't have to worry about that. What we're talking about is we want just enough power to get the job done. Hey, we all agree 5 bars on a cell phone's enough, right? Yep. Well, how much is that? That's minus 85 dBm or 0.002. Cool, great. There's where we want to be. That's our sweet spot. You're going to be 3 million times higher than that? No, that's not okay with us. See, it just changes the whole perception of the power. That's why you never want to talk about microwave radiation. You only want to talk about effective radiated power. Because the minute you talk about microwave radiation, they bring in the guideline and they bring in 10 million. So don't go there. Hang in 5 bars of a cell phone. And so what does it matter what the guideline is? The guideline is so high, we'll never get there. Don't even worry about that. That's just for military purposes. To make the quiet enjoyment of streets possible, we got to be down here around 0.002 or maybe 0.005 or something like that. That's where we got to be. Don't worry about getting close to the guideline. My God, if you did that, we'd all have to move out. So let's not go there. We want to preserve the quiet enjoyment of streets, want to preserve the property values, want to preserve our town. That's how we do it. Yeah, go ahead, Val.
I've also heard a lot of references to all you need is 1/10 of a watt. Is that because of the multiple antennas on the array, or?
Where does that come from? That comes from the FCC's Class B regulations for Wi-Fi routers.
Okay.
So all I do is I pick a actually existing regulation and I essentially apply apples to oranges. Okay, because a class B device is kind of a home use device and it's got a whole set of rules different than commercial devices. You can make this little common sense argument, that says, well, look, they already know they have to cap it when they come close to a house. They already do that. Okay, well, hold on. If I'm 100 feet from my neighbor and I have to worry about how much I'm outputting, well, what about that pole? That pole's as much of a neighbor in my neighborhood as I am. It's the same distance from me as my neighbor. So of course the same amount of power should apply. Look, the only reason it wouldn't is if it couldn't get the job done. But it turns out that it is enough to get the job done. See? So if you actually came out at 1/10 of a watt, 0.1 watt, and gave it the experiment, we're just doing a thought experiment. Those are the key metrics I talk about. Hey, what happens when you take your home Wi-Fi router with a 4-inch antenna, you carry it out to the pole, you climb to the top, you put it on the top, you take that little small power supply that fits in your hand, you plug it in, and let's see what happens. It goes down the block a half a mile, you get 5 bars on a cell phone, and everybody can make a call. What's the problem? There is no problem. That's how you solve the problem.
Can you elaborate on that? That's the question I'm concerned about getting, is when they claim, well, we want to do all these things, people expect them, and I just need some really airtight responses for that.
Okay, let's go right here. Legislation, compare. Okay, this is on my website in scientistsforwiredtech.com/compare. Why is this important? Well, I start with a nice paragraph. You could copy and paste this paragraph, put in any email to any council member. It has 3 good links to it. One is to this page, one is to the conference report, one is to the purpose of the 1996 Act. This is the 3 legs of the stool that allows the city to understand that they have authority. Okay, we start with the most important Supreme Court case to us. It is Palos Verdes versus Abrams, and it was in 2005. We had the judges talk all about a conference report, which is right here, and saying Congress ultimately rejected a national approach and substituted a system based on cooperative federalism. Good. This makes this conference report as good as law. This is it. Okay. Hey, conference reports are an explanation of why we came up with the final bill the way we did. And they're not always recognized. This one got recognized by the U.S. Supreme Court. That makes it law. I got that confirmed by a White House attorney. Okay, so that's good. We understand it's law. It applies. There's good stuff. So the conclusion, the regulation of the operations of WTFs was never preempted from local zoning authority. Period. The end. That's the truth. You could do it by comparing these two. You look for the word operate and operation over here, and you see it. And you look over here and it's gone. Oh, we consciously removed the preemption of operations. It's not preempted from local authority. It was going to be in the House version, but it's not in the Senate version, which is the one we actually passed. Cool. Here's the limitations. Right up front, they tell you exactly nothing in this act shall limit local authority, except a few things we're about to define. What are they? Decisions about placing, constructing, and modifying certain things. But we got a couple things we have to live up to. Number 1, shall not unreasonably discriminate among providers of functionally equivalent services. All right. Shall not prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the provision of personal wireless services. Got it. They took that from us. They said, for sure, you have to follow this. Nobody can get around this. Well, what is this? What's a personal wire service? What's a functional equivalent service? All you have to do now is tag these to the definitions. Go down to personal wire service. You have to find a definition right there. Means commercial mobile services, unlicensed wireless services, and common carrier wireless exchange access services. Let's translate that. I decide to sell you a monthly subscription to make phone calls. That's what that is. That's like any cell phone plan. Unlicensed wireless services, that's Wi-Fi. Common carrier wireless exchange access services. Oh, When I make a call on my cell phone, it has to connect to a switched landline. Okay, got it. So now I ask you, does personal wire services include internet or video or gaming or anything else? It does not. I can read the definition right there. It has only to do with wireless phone calls. Period. The end. Cool. So that one's defined. Let's go back up to what we were looking at. Now we got this funny thing called functionally equivalent services. All right, now there isn't a strict definition here in this part of the law. So now we're spitballing. Now we're trying to say, well, what is a functionally equivalent service? I'm going to ask you each to describe it to your best ability without any other knowledge. What do you think a functionally equivalent service? So functionally equivalent service. What would be an example of two functionally equivalent services? This is equivalent to that. Making a phone call and what else?
Texting.
Okay, they're equivalent in your mind.
Yeah.
You have this thing called broadband internet. I can get it through my cable company, but I can also get it off my phone.
Streaming.
So let's think about this. I can get a web page on my wired up computer in my house, and I can get a web page out there on my phone. Both of them are giving me internet. Are they functionally equivalent services?
Yeah.
You think, huh? So wireline broadband and wireless broadband would be functionally equivalent services. And maybe making phone calls on a switched landline and making phone calls on a wireless phone would also be functionally equivalent services. It sounds logical, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have any other guesses?
Well, this is where fiber optics would come in, right?
So where would it come in? It would be an example of wireline broadband.
Yeah, they're discriminating against fiber.
Well, are we saying that wireless broadband through my data plan and wireline broadband through my cable company, are we considering those functionally equivalent services? Right? So I've just talked you into a very logical position. And this is the position that the wires companies take. And it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's just wrong. Fortunately, it's wrong. Let's go and find out why. What we get to do now is we get to go over to the conference report right there. Why? Because the U.S. Supreme Court justices told us that it was actual law. Cool. What does the law say? Let's read it right here. We have a definition hiding down here. When using the term functionally equivalent services, the conferees, those are your elected representatives, are referring only to personal wireless services. As defined in this section that directly compete against one another. It's defined as AT&T's phone calls against Verizon's phone calls against T-Mobile's phone calls. That is it. Now we make the smart statement. Wireless broadband and wireline broadband are not functionally equivalent services. They are not treated that way in the law, and they are not that way at all in actuality. Why is that? Let's think about it. All the good things about wireline broadband. Oh, it's fast, secure, no data caps. I get to use all I want. All these great benefits. What's on the wireless side? Oh, they're data capped. They're not secure. You don't get all you want. They're hazardous, right? And there's all kinds of bad things on that side. You just put that in the public record. Wireline broadband and wireless broadband are not functionally equivalent services. That's the way it is in actuality. That's the way it is in the law. And there is no support for wireless broadband.
Our city council members aren't going to know this whatsoever. We have to be the ones to educate them. And in fact, they're going to have to unlearn what they already learned, maybe more so than the people here. And then we have to teach them. There's nobody else that's going to do it. Is that right, Paul? I mean,
that's absolutely right. This is your city council. This is your city attorney right here. And these are your planning people. Everybody's in a box. That box was built by wireless propaganda.
Okay. But he's so cute and fuzzy.
Well, that's all I'm trying to tell you. Your planning people could be cute and fuzzy. It doesn't matter to me. But here's the problem. This is it. They are believing shit that's been told to them by the wireless industry for 25 years. And you have to call it for what it is. It's bullshit. That's all it is. How do we know? Let's go back to the original documents. That's all you have to do. You don't have to sit there and say, what's your opinion on the matter? No, 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 no. I don't care about any conclusion you give me. I don't care if you're a city attorney, anybody else. Give me the citation that backs up your conclusion. Then we can finally settle this thing. That's the whole point, is you want to make sure they understand that what you're telling them isn't just wishful thinking. It's based on careful analysis, informed by whom? The top attorneys in the United States that are suing the FCC right now, because we studied their work. That's why.
Well,
Do you
can
really
I-
want to talk to them? Sure, we'll get them on the phone with you. Laws are passed by our elected representatives, and they are like the directives given by a CEO of a corporation. Okay, they set the goals and they set the overall arching things of what you want to accomplish, and they express the intent. It is the purest part of everything that's out there, and you generally can't. So that's the highest level stuff. Then they hand it off to the FCC. And the FCC's goal is to write reams and reams of analysis and rules and guidelines and all other kind of crap to implement the general directives of the law. And generally, we give them a whole bunch of deference and say, we trust you, we trust you, we trust you, and we trust that you're doing the right job. We trust you doing the right thing. But, you know, they go way overboard. And so now they are doing things that are not in concert with the underlying statute or law. This is where we get the wedge, is we point out where the FCC's gone beyond the statute. And that is why when, you know, tie goes to the statute, always. I'm not quite sure which way it goes. Well, then you have to rely on the statute. Okay. The FCC puts out different kinds of orders. Some of these orders are written in such a way that really can be considered as strong as federal law. Others are interpretive orders, and they are a list of preferences, and they are not to be treated as self-enforcing. The wireless industry will sell you the story that every single FCC order is 100% law. That's not true. And so where does that really shape up? That shapes up in September of 2018 with their small cell order. It is a series and a list of preferences only. So this is one of the biggest things you got to talk your city attorney out of, believing that this 18-133 thing is any bigger and better than it ever was. It's just a statement of preferences.
Which one is the 18-133? What's the gist of that one?
It is essentially your Arizona state bill translated to a federal FCC order. Everything you wanted to get done in the state bill is pretty much repeated in this FCC order. Okay.
Is that the HB
2365 state bill was written by the American Legislative Exchange Council, which is this Republican organization that writes legislations, and they hand it to all of the state legislators. And then they give them money and they bribe them and they get them to pass these laws. Okay. So then what did the FCC said? Oh, well, we looked out and half the states passed this law. So let's now make an order that's in line with this law. Well, who wrote that? A professor from George Mason University, who's funded by the American Legislative Exchange Council. So this is all done. It's all planned out about 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago. And they're just executing it when they got all the positions in place. That's all. And so when they got Ajit Pai to come in, they knew they had 3 guys to vote it through. So they just came forward and mowed them all down. Now, look, Erica Rosenworcel from the Democrat side hates that order. She spoke out against it when it was passed. She's, you know, slapped them around when it went into the lawsuit, you know, and she might get rid of it, which would be great if she did. But I mean, we have to get a 3rd Democrat there in order to be able to get rid of it. But she's for local control, which we got too much power. That's the main message. It's excessive. It's way beyond what we need. It's like 25 million times higher than what we need. Hugely high.
So go back to the first one a second, because guaranteed city attorney will say, no, we don't need a NEPA review. So you got a city attorney saying one thing, and you've got the FCC NEPA attorney saying another. So how do we deal with that?
Okay, so all you're talking about is you're arguing about jurisdiction. Okay, so what's jurisdiction? Well, listen, I run my family here in my house, and I tell my 13-year-old daughter what to do. Does my next door neighbor tell my 13-year-old daughter what to do? No, he doesn't have jurisdiction over her. I do. Okay, cool. So I'm a city attorney. I have local laws. My jurisdiction is over this. Hey, whatever they're doing at the federal level, I'm not going to do any extra work I don't have to do. Okay, so no, I don't have to lift a finger locally about NEPA if I don't want to? Okay. So now you go to the FCC. Hey, do they have to go through NEPA? Of course they do. It's part of their license. That's exactly where it is. We are treating every single cell tower the same way. We thought we were going to get an exemption from environmental review, but we lost it in the courts. So we have to treat it like every other tower. All
When
right.
did we lose it in the courts? Which case?
That was the Keto. It was decided in August of
So
2019.
Val, wasn't Scottsdale and maybe even Prescott saying, oh no, we don't really need NEPA review? Weren't they making those statements?
Yep, our city planner, Keith Nieder, said that. And then we were cut off from any comment, and we're kind of waiting on Paul to get all those rebuttals. That's going to be top of the list. But
Okay,
Paul,
let's talk this out.
So
Wait,
now
what
what
I get out of the FCC in October 2019 is I talked to all 4 people again. And I said, now look, we heard Keith Niederer from Scottsdale say these things. And so confirm for me which way it is, because it seems very different from what you told me back in December. So help me out. Give me some confirmation of how to think about this so we can communicate it accurately to the city. So it kind of goes like this. Of course, they have to follow federal law. There's no doubt about it. It's just a question of could your, and it's an option for your city. Your city could take the position that we are deciding to enforce federal law. We are going to decide to require of the applicants for them to prove to us that they've actually undergone NEPA review. That's well within their purview to do that. They could make that a condition of their application. That's perfectly fine. They can do that. They are not forced to do that. If they don't want to do that, nobody can force them to do it. So it's an optional thing. Now, your city chooses not to enforce it. Who else can enforce it? You, the individual citizen, can enforce it. So now you get to go out and make the FCC complaint and prove that they haven't done a NEPA review and this has got a bad problem and there's all kinds of issues with the environmental effects. So particularly in my bedroom where there are 50,000 radiation units, was 25 million times too high. What about that? That's affecting the environment of my bedroom, which is not allowing me to sleep. Oh, that's an environmental thing. It doesn't have to just be about wetlands. It doesn't have to be about frogs. We live here too. So these are all things you can do.
I'm just a little bit confused by the language that was just used. You were saying that it is optional for them, but if it truly is optional, then how can we citizens enforce it?
Guess what? I'm going to do a little bit of bragging. Here I go. Under action, I have a page called NEPA strategies. If you go into Google or DuckDuckGo and you type in 2 words, NEPA and then strategies, I'm the #1 link because more people read this page than any other page on my website. Here it is. You should read the whole thing. If you do, you'll learn everything you need to know and you will have Here is Erica Rosenberg. It's about an hour-long video. Watch the first 20, 30 minutes. Get a sense of who she is. Get a sense that she's a decent person, that she's here just describing a bunch of rules back in 2018 before they lost the lawsuit. They lost the lawsuit the following summer. Most of the rules that she talked about went away. And so now they're kind of in a pickle because they don't have what they thought they were going to get, which was an exemption for environmental review. Let's take a look what this woman said on October 19th. She is the division chief of the Competition and Infrastructure Policy Division of the Wires Telecommunication Bureau. She's about as high as you get. You go one more, you get to the commissioners. She said this to me. I actually pushed her to say something decent. She said this, quote, the FCC, when it modified its rules after the DC Circuit issued its mandate, we took the position that we were reviewing small wires facilities as federal undertakings and major federal actions pursuant to the DC Circuit decision, and that is what we've been doing. Every single wireless facility is treated equally, and every single license is dependent upon them following federal law. If they do not follow federal law, you could take their license away. They can lose their license for your geography if they don't follow federal law. This is exactly where you go. You force them through your complaint to the FCC and you go after their license. As we heard from Erica Rosenberg here on February 28th, 2020, and she says right all here, wireless facilities need a NEPA review. That is correct. I mean, they're not coming from anybody else but the FCC itself. So
can we do it ex post facto on all of the towers?
And in fact, I got that confirmed. Yes, you can. You can go after the ones that have been put in without NEPA review. For those that were not turned on by August 9th or August 4th of 2019. That's the key date. But look, you read this through and you're going to see that there's a way to reach out to these people and go ahead and figure it all out and give them a complaint letter. And it should be a very detailed complaint letter. That's all. And you put in a bunch of evidence of why it's a problem. And then if you say exactly what evidence, then I'm going to say, we're all in a foxhole and we have these things being built in our neighborhoods. And so the tanks are rolling forward. Exactly which weapon are you choosing not to fire and why? I would pick up every single weapon you have and I'd fire all of them right now. That's what I would do, because you don't know which one is going to work. So why would you put all your eggs in one basket? Just fire anything you got. I would say that your number one duty and ask is to get bigger. Figure out a way to somehow knit up with all the other cities that are fighting on this and make sure they all collect on your website, Val, and they all have an individual page there and they all feel part of it. Because then when you have a large group and you have the need to get 100 people to a meeting, and then they drive in, they show up for Phoenix, and then they show up for Tucson. Okay, y'all you don't want to show up unprepared to a meeting, but what you want to do is you want to knock on the door and get the meeting, because it may take you 6 weeks to get it. And so now I got a meeting set. Now I'm going to go through some deep study to get ready over the next. And how many meetings do you want? One per council member. You want one per planning commissioner. You want one per city staff member. Okay. Hey, what do we do in Petaluma? Hey, let's get all the city staff people in one room. Let's have a 90-minute little meeting.
Well, what it is so that does make sense. And they're also, I don't think they're doing in person still. That's presenting a bit of a, because I'm funneling everyone to AZ for Safe Tech right now. Like on our neighborhood listserv, I'm putting up flyers on poles. I'm actually doing some like grassroots stuff right now. That's exactly what you want to do. And look, you don't want 5 different websites. You want one, and you got a pretty website, Val. So the point is, it's going to get busy, and you got to be prepared for it.
Okay, yeah, that's a priority for next week. Here's an idea. We had the 5G Summit. Robin was there. Yay, Robin. On Saturday. It was great. So we've got 22 people now who are going to be sort of captains in their cities, we hope. We are meeting tonight at 7:30 Arizona time with those people. But if Brad or Russ, if you want to come on that meeting and just make a pitch for Tucson, what we're going to do and just speak on Tucson's behalf, we will happily help.
Great.
Yeah, and this is specifically Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And I can do these Zooms. I mean, I did in Pennsylvania. I don't remember, Connecticut. We had 50, 100. We had city council. So I can do that. We got invite people that don't know anything that are interested. There's lots of ways we can grow this. But that's already a great starting point. Is if we can consolidate and have numbers in the scores, 50 people here that can support each other and learn from each other and have the weekly meetings, like you said. That's really important for Tucson. And on the website, you could have a nice little wall of fame, which are all the nice presentations that Russ has already done. So put those videos up there so that people can actually watch them. And then we can put today's meeting up there and people can actually get to all these different things. And then you want the wall of shame. You want all that of pictures of all the bad installations that are going up and all the things that are happening city by city and everything else. So you could have a slideshow for each of the cities. You want these very easily on the website. So I mean, my point is that your website, Val, is going to be the place that people are going to go to learn about this. Yeah. And so we have to get ready for it and just be ready that enough people can touch the website. I would say when it comes to public statements, we need at least 5 people that have addresses, and they need to give the statements. It's having 80 people behind them listening in the room that's also important. So I think when it comes to public statements, they should be they should have a local address, I would assume. That's what you would want to do.
Correct. But what we were told is that we need a bunch of people to just call and email. So if you send just an email and it's not through their website, you don't have to say where you're from. Like I sent one to Chandler today, and just you got to get out of Divvy. Period. The end. There's no choice. Okay. You're going to take whatever look and feel you can from what's currently going on. We're going to recreate it the best we can in a standard WordPress interface. Okay. We use all the same graphics. We use everything else. Your web person is perfectly capable of doing this. She just does Divi because she's used to it. It's easy for her. That's all. So now what we want to do is say it's not about you. It's about everybody else.
and you got to make your design work in a standard WordPress theme. And we're going to make 10 administrators, and we're going to allow them to come in. And so really what you should do is you should think about it this way. You have the main pages are still under kind of lock and key from, you know, whoever's in charge of the group branding. And then the city pages each have their own administrator from those cities. And they get to add to those pages, but not the whole thing. Okay?
That makes perfect
ways
sense.
to do this, and she knows this if she's a WordPress person.
All right, that sounds really good. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, because clearly you do want this to collect a bunch of information. That's it. And you want a lot of people to put information up there. You want to make this grow and organic. And then when it gets big enough, then you go ahead and try to get some press coverage. And every single flyer sends them to this great website. And when they go to the Get Involved page. And when they're there, they have links for every city. And then they go, great, I live in Tucson. Boom, now I'm on the Tucson page. Now I got a way to sign up. And I see what the next steps are. I see all the good stuff that's going on. All right, cool. I learned my Tucson thing. Great. I live in Arizona and I'm from Tucson. I've done my job. Okay, that's it. And then you have a page for Chandler and a page for Scottsdale and a page for.
Can I just ask, with the NEPA strategies, like, is that actually, would that halt things going on if there is construction, you notice, and you're able to?
I'll tell you exactly what happened in January, February. We started doing this, and any of the ones that we have NEPA complaints in for have not been built. Okay, so now it's December, so we held it off for 11 months.
I thought there was a change a few months ago that they weren't responding to that anymore.
Look, mine hasn't been built. I haven't heard back from the FCC yet. They're still, quote, evaluating it. Okay. Harry's, the one in Thousand Oaks, hasn't been built. I mean, he went to the well 3 times. And so they caught Verizon all kinds of lies. And so that one's on hold now too. The only ones that are going through are the ones that people didn't do a really good, thorough job. And so they just write you a form letter back. And then the person makes a decision and says, oh, well, I guess I'll just go with the form letter. Or they dig in and say, I'm sorry, I don't see any results of you reading my evidence and making a reasoned decision-making. I'm going to complain again. So the point is, it's really up to the person. You can keep this thing on hold for a long time if you are dogged about it. But it takes effort. This is why everybody in Arizona should be doing this across the entire state. This is a great, excellent strategy. And then you start going after the licenses. Arizona Public Records. Okay, read this page. Follow it. You don't sit there and go by what they tell you over the phone. That means nothing.
Okay.
You sit down and say, my right is the following. I'm going to quote the law to you. You must now respond. Within the jurisdiction of the city, you go to the city. If it's within the jurisdiction of unincorporated area of your county, NEPA review is a 3-tier system. And you should understand where you can leverage it. Think about NEPA review as a big fat notebook. And the title of the notebook is called NEPA Analysis. It's just having with all things to do with NEPA. Okay, you open the notebook. The first tab is very thin. It's called NEPA Review. It's really basic. There's not much to it. The next one's a pretty thick tab. It's called NEPA Environmental Assessment. That's a big deal. Okay, and the third one is NEPA Environmental Impact Statement, and that's a good 4 inches. And we'll never get there because that's for highways and shopping centers and everything and big developments. Okay, so we're just bumping between the small tab and the second is tab. NEPA review. You will learn it's basically nothing. It's something that the applicant must go through, and they must look at it and see if any part of these rules apply to them. And if they make the determination that none of the rules apply to them, then they will say they are allowed to self-police. So in their own mind, they could say something like, oh, today pudding is green, and therefore I am exempt. That would count as NEPA review. Okay, it's nonsensical, but the FCC is actually allowing them to self-police. All right, they get away with the shit all the time, unless you show up. You make all the difference. Hi, I'm here today to see if you have any evidence of NEPA review. I don't see any in the file. All right, I'm going to use that as a basis for my complaint. I'm going to now complain to the FCC that there is no NEPA review. So now we're going to ask the applicant to prove they've done NEPA review. Well, they're going to have to come up with something. And if they haven't come up and they've done nothing, hey, they violated the law right there. What do you do when you violate the law? Hey, well, I'll go back to my town and say, you know, if I build my fence 6 inches too close to the boundary of my neighbor's yard, you make me pull that fence down, right? Well, here we have right now, they broke federal law, have them pull that damn cell tower down until they do NEPA review. Now the question is, now we want to say, what is your determination, FCC? Are they environmentally exempt, or will they need to do an environmental assessment? You tell us, and we'll wait to hear back from you. So that's kind of how it works for NEPA review. Let's go to NEPA environmental assessment. Well, it's a big deal. Now I'm going to have to hire a consultant. I'm going to have to go in and do some real study. I'm going to have to generate a bunch of documents. I'm going to have to go and write it all up. I'm going to have to now present this whole big fat document to the FCC, and the FCC is going to have to make a determination based on that document. And what are they competing against? They're competing against all the evidence you brought forward saying why it is an environmental problem. And now the FCC has to somehow log it, deal with it, schedule it, and determine it. How long has this been taking them? 6, 8, 10, 12 months. So is this worth doing? Oh yeah, it's been worth doing since a year ago. So that's what NEPA environmental assessment is. Let us go to the magic rule, and then I'll tell you why this is so good for Arizona. All right, let's go right here to Action NEPA Strategies. And let us now take a look at evaluation required if the non-building mounted antenna has a height above the ground less than 10 meters. That's 33 feet, 8 inches. And the power is greater than 1,000 watts of ERP. Oh, that's true. That describes a whole lot of cell towers, a whole lot of small cells. If they violate this condition, by rule, they have to do an assessment. If you haven't done it, well, you violated federal law. That's the way it is. Who's going to enforce that? You are, through the FCC. If you pull together a decent proposal with a bunch of evidence, and what should there be? There should be whatever's wrong about the application. There should be the fact that maybe you do have some environmental factors there. Maybe there are some endangered species or anything's going on. You have to take a look at it environmentally yourself. I mean, you got to take a look at, is there a controversy within the community? Do you have people speaking out against it? Is there anything in the public record that says that this is a bad thing? Oh my goodness. Well, if you put a bunch of stuff on the public record, great. You get to reproduce everything in the record and send it off to the FCC. Hey, you know what I want to do? I want to give the FCC about 1,000 pages to read. That's what I want to do, because that means they're going to put the thick one on the table behind them. And it's going to sit there. And then you feed that back to your city and say, you know, city, it's optional for you to maybe issue the permit or not, but it is not optional for you to let them build it. You can't build it until you hear back from the FCC. You build it now you're in trouble.
Right. That's good.
Okay, so, you know, you can play ball what you want. It'd be better to play ball with us. We're more on your side than the wires industry. But if you continue to ignore us, then we're going to make sure that we're going to stick this one right up your butt in the end here.
I know that language. I did commercial real estate for years. That makes sense.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to tell you, is that if you have resolve, if you do the work, you can get right in the middle of all this. If you could actually recruit 200 people to do NEPA complaints statewide, man, you could upset all of Arizona. You could sit there and go, of the 4,000 small sales you put in, 3,998 of them didn't have NEPA review. We have just now petitioned the FCC to pull the AT&T and Verizon licenses for the state of Arizona, and we're going to ask them all to be removed. Now, you know, you go into some kind of attorney general thing, and you got to figure out a way to have some kind of settlement. And what's the settlement? Oh, the settlement is we reduce the power down to 0.1 watt, and they make all the antennas small. Oh, that's what we want. Right? So you got to attack them at all levels, whatever you got to do. That's all I'm trying to tell you. Right? Look, they built this whole thing on a foundation of no environmental review. The minute they lost that, I'm going to share one more thing with you that I wrote, and I want you to.
Why did they do it? Why do they do it? Why did the telecom companies do it?
They make more money. Okay, if I have a whole bunch of power, then I can serve as many people as I want, as far away as I want, and I can start shoving video down their throats and charge them money in data caps for it. California, gotcha. Santa Barbara, right here. Okay, so I went and talked to their city attorney and I wrote them a letter here and said the following. A negotiation with the public also requires accurate interpretations of FCC 18-11 and 18-133 because they're not self-enforcing. That was admitted by the FCC in light of the fact that the wires industry lost its foundational definition for small cells in August, in this case. So let's take a look what happened. Here's the Federal Registry entry. This is what they did. Here we are, saying that, well, you know, consistent with the court's mandate in August, this order repeals the commission's rules implementing small wires facilities exemption and deletes a cross-reference to that section contained elsewhere in the commission's rules. They removed a section of the rules that included the definition of small cells. That's what they removed. It's gone. It's a big eraser. All right, so wait a minute. In March of 2018, you set it all up. We're going to define a small cell as this. It has all this kind of stuff. And now later in September and August, we're going to have things that refer back to that definition and say, now we're giving it extra benefits. What's one of them? Oh, shot clocks. Yeah, 60-day shot clocks because no environmental review is needed. That's why we can have 60-day shot clocks. Well, hold on. What's that pointing towards now? Nothing. Definition's gone, folks. It's no foundation. That's where we are. So what else did they say? All right, well, we find notice and comment are unnecessary. Oh, that's weird. Why? For whatever little silly thing, okay? Accordingly, it's ordered that this part of the rule, this is the one, is repealed. Got it. That was properly done. But then we went ahead and amended something. Wait a minute, hold on. What did you do? We added in something else. Did you do it properly? No, we didn't. Hey, when it's time to actually set up an 800,000 unit rollout of some kind of class of wire facilities, what do you have to do? You have to do what you did the first time. You have to put the definition out in an order, ask for public comment, go through the procedure and vote on it and establish it. Did they do that? No, they didn't. What did they do? In a frat boy kind of cut a corner way, just shoved it in right into here. Into so then they try to say, oh, the stuff is all okay. All right. And then they come down and they give you the final rules. All right, we're going to amend it. We're going to take this thing out. And then we're going to come back in and add in this magic definition again. Here it is. Here's the small cell definition that was in the order. We're going to shove it in here through the back door a second time. This is the fatal error right there. That's it. That's what they did. You can catch the FCC on this right here. So now we have a whole bunch of orders that point at nothing. I think that 18-11 is going to crumble and 18-133 is going to crumble because they're pointing at something that doesn't exist. So what I'm trying to tell you is that this whole small cell foundation thing legally is on very, very thin ground. And, you know, you sit here and the propaganda is, oh, yes, of course, it's just perfect. Or we're all going forward. We're all doing it right. No, anybody who really knows what's going on knows this is a bunch of BS.
That's awesome.
Well, it's awesome to the point where you can start convincing people what's going on.
Exactly.
So you gotta open their minds to this. Here's the other one. Oh, we had this August 2020 ruling on these two orders. And what does the wires industry say? And what does the media say? They say, oh, well, you know, the whole wireless agenda was upheld in this order. And that's how they report it. And then you go actually read the ruling, and it doesn't say that at all. It says exactly this. We hold that the FCC's requirement that aesthetic regulations be no more burdensome is not lawful. So we're going to scrap that. What else? Oh, we hold that the FCC's requirement that all local aesthetic regulations be objective is arbitrary and capricious. That one's gone too. Okay, therefore, what do? We grant the petitions as to those requirements. So the city's won on those. We vacate those portions of the rule. They're gone. And we remand them back to the FCC. Did they make any other statements in this ruling? They did not. Okay, what does that really mean? And it's not law. Okay, it is a bunch of statement of preferences. That is not law. So now the point is, it's just an opinion. It's just guidance. You don't have to go along with it if you don't like it. So you can do whatever you want. That's the whole point. And so you don't have to treat it as law. Let's see what the #1 attorney in the United States says about it. Andrew Campanelli, this guy. Listen to him. And all I did was transcribe what he says about. If you just go into an office and read somebody this, you're probably going to hear someone on a city council say, oh, we're preempted, our hands are tied. I hear that all the time. There's a September interpretive order 18-133, which I think is ineffective. Federal courts for 20 years have interpreted the language of the TCA, and they say when an effective prohibition occurs. The case has gone up to the U.S. Court of Appeals for all these different judges. Federal judges are bound by the no significant gap in telecommunications coverage and least intrusive. So he says, test. I don't think this thing has any effect at all because the FCC can't take away the powers preserved to towns by Congress. The FCC can't wipe out 20 years of federal judges' interpretations, and the FCC can't strip local governments of 20 years of local zoning regulations. So the Washington is just going from town to town, showing this ruling as gospel. And the closest thing I have is from a federal judge in New York, and these are his words. It's not up to the FCC to put words in the Telecommunications Act that aren't there. That's why I think I'm right.
Thank you so much.
Okay,
for
good
your
luck to you all.
expertise and time.
Yeah, it's all here, so it's all readable. And the best one to master is action. Read the action menu and then go search for anything you want. That's the quick way to get through my website.
This is up my alley. This is what I did in commercial real estate. This is so freaking cool.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Nice.
You want to go and pull their pants down and make these guys fall over.
Excited now. I can do this. So
good. And here's the whole point. These guys are. And you go right into your city attorneys. You go right into your city manager. Look, we don't have to be patsies here. We can actually do this better. Honestly, the state sets you up, but you can thread the needle.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, you're welcome. Good luck to you all.
Thanks,
So
Paul.
I guess you guys got another meeting to go to, so I will stop sharing, right? And then I will end the meeting. We're about to ready to go.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul, so much.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
Paul.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.